everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of my very first podcast, Spirituality by Adi Newman. I'm so happy that you're here. So, what are we going to do? We are going to explore the way I live my life, which is a combination of Jewish philosophy, inputs from both Hinduism and Central American shamanism, and my 25 years of exploration within the psychedelic realm. I find that my psychedelic experience complements my Jewish study and my deepening into philosophies of all sorts, because when we learn things and we feel them with the head, at the end of the day, we want to have them in our body. We want them to become a second nature. And this is what I hope to share with you. And I hope this can bring as much light into your life as it has brought into mine. So for our first two sessions, I would like to go over some basic templates, structures, we should call them structures of energy that happen outside of us and obviously are mirrored internally within us. The sentence, as above, so below. When we learn and understand the way the transference of energy happens in the cosmos, the way the transference of energy happens between the light, between divine consciousness to ourselves, we also learn to understand the transference of energy within ourselves, how we react to different situations in our lives, how we react to the other people in our lives. And the more we know, the easier it is to succeed. Now, before we start anything, I would like to start with the most fundamental and yet hard to grasp topic of all. What is divine consciousness? What is God when we talk about God? So unfortunately, I don't have an exact answer for you, but I'm working on one. I'll let you know if and when I achieve it. But what is very, very important to remember is that we're not talking about a man-made concept of God. In the Ten Commandments, which is from all the texts that we have, the only text that we attribute to have come directly from the divine consciousness and been transferred word for word to the human race. The second commandment, right there at the top, says that you will not make God in man's image. And after that, we have thousands of years of humans doing exactly that, depicting a God that is vengeful, depicting a God that can be angry, a God that needs to forgive, a God that is merciful when they, them so choose. Oh yes, I'm gonna talk about God in they, them words because, I think you have to agree with me. The original they, them is the divine one. It's definitely not a he or a she, and I can't even begin to think of it as an it, so them. Anyway, they brought us the Ten Commandments. They requested that we do not make God in man's image. And yet, as humans, our nature is to create structures that we can relate to, structures that we can understand. And what's happened is that we've gotten to a place where people hear the word God and it gives them a physical reaction. This God that people talk about is an other. I am not connected to. If you hear the divine consciousness, if you hear the universe wants what's best for you, it's very easy to connect to, oh yes, I am the universe. I am made of stars, and we are the universe internally and externally. But the minute we hear the word God, for some of us, it has a very triggering reaction. So I just want to make it very clear that even when I do use the word God, I am talking about the energy of love that is in the fabric of creation itself. I'm talking about the divine mother, divine consciousness, the universe, the goodwill of the nature of creation. So this is God. This is the light. Now, according to Kabbalah, the light has a main essence, a character. That character is the desire to share. The desire to share is in the actual structure and the DNA of creation itself, which is why often we feel best when we are connected in a circle of sharing, whether it is with a partner, whether it is with a group of people. When we are sharing an experience, we're connected to the desire to share, to the experience of sharing, to the experience of receiving, because this structure, this love DNA, is already in the fabric of all creation around us. I often feel that the desire to share, as it is called in Kabbalah, is the greatest manifestation of love. And it is actually, to me, love itself that is the substance of what started creation. Now, light is the infinite. We are in the 3D world. We are in the physical world. The difference between, the infinite has everything in it. The infinite has everything, but it is not everything in essence, or actually it is the essence of everything, but it isn't any one thing. Because in the infinite there are no borders, so while the infinite has happy and sad and growth and tower and shack and spoon and seashore, it isn't any one of these things specifically, because there are no borders in the infinite. As the infinite manifests into the 3D realm, the physical reality, it comes into structures, into vessels with borders. Those are us. That's how we express the infinite into the world. That's creation. That is everything around us, which has a physical existence. In Hebrew, we have the term called yesh me'ain, is out of nothingness. So the infinite isn't nothingness, but it is not any specificness, right? And this is the structure that we're going to talk about first. The is out of the isn't. The is out of the everything but not one thing at all is basically the structure that in Judaism is called Tzimtzum. Most of you know the physical story of destruction, which is called the Big Bang. And I love the way the two coincide, but let me take us to the beginning. First, there was light. And that light was everything and everywhere. And it filled all the entirety of space. Well, there isn't any space yet, but we're going to talk about that in a moment. But the light is everything that there is. And the light needed to condense itself. In Hebrew, the word we use is tzimtzum, like you condense a sauce to get all the water out. The light needed to condense itself in order to create space for something else to exist, because the light needed something to give to, wanted something to give to. And the light condensed itself to what we call the nekuda. Kabbalistically, which literally means dot. But you have to understand it's a very interesting dot, because it's as if the light, all of everything, all of eternity, all of what will be, could be, and ever will be manifested, shrunk down like a dwarf planet, right? So it condensed to this tiny dot in the center of all. Those are the words, in the center of all. But then this dot, it's as if you flipped it inside out, because all of the potential was on the outside of this condensed dot, not on the inside of the nothingness. And this is a tiny, tiny, tiny dot. And from this dot was drawn the first line, and the line opened into space, into shetach, okay? Now, when we talk about the Big Bang theories explain almost exactly the same thing, and they explain it several thousand years later. And what the Big Bang theories say is that there was some kind of condensation of energy, whether there was a huge universe before and it collapsed, like the collapse of the sun into a white dwarf or brown dwarf. So whether there was a huge universe here before and it then collapsed and it exploded and all matter entered again, and with matter, space itself started to grow from a center point, which is why space itself is still expanding. Or if there wasn't anything before, then in some way, in some form of matter that we don't know how to explain, everything became in a very structured, condensed situation, and boom, erupted. And space itself erupted, which is a very, very interesting and fine point here, because it's not like matter exploded into space, right? Space is growing. We have this in Jewish texts that talk about, well, all of it is hinted in Sefer Yetzirah, in the Book of Creation, which is a book written by Abraham, which is a book that we know may not have been written by Abraham, but it's at least 3,000 years old, because we have references for it in other texts that we know were written 2,500 years ago or 2,000 years ago, at which time we already had a proper count of the years. And from things that were hinted in the Book of Creation, the ancient Kabbalists around the years, the 1200 and the 1300s in Spain, when Kabbalah was really, really blooming for the peak of Kabbalah, the modern type of Kabbalah that we study to this day, was really born and reborn in Spain during those years. And they all talk about this concept of tzimtzum. This is hundreds of years before anyone thought of the structure of the Big Bang. Now, I'm not saying this in this comparative sort of way to say, we said it first. It's not what it's about. It's about when you have something that is a knowledge, that is a deep truth that people attain through meditation, through thought and study. And then you see that the scientists, hundreds of years later, come up with different words and a different explanation for the exact same situation. It's an affirmation Okay, it's like, wow, we're onto something. And these ancient Kabbalists, there was a certain way in which they were connecting beyond the veil and downloading real information and bringing it to us, which is now confirmed through studies. Like, for example, random detail, okay? The sun exudes light on the green shade of the spectrum. This is written in ancient Kabbalic text. The sun is referenced as green a couple times. In the Zohar, it's also referenced as green one time. Nowadays, NASA has discovered, I don't know what, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, NASA discovered and published that if we could see the light of the sun properly and not be blinded by the amount of light that's coming out of it, we would actually notice that it's not exactly in the yellow spectrum, it's actually in the green shade of the spectrum, which also when you kind of look around and see that all the plants that eat sunlight go through photosynthesis and then green color comes out of them, or the green interacts with the chlorophyll, which is already inside of them. I don't know how it works, but I do know that there are many, many plants around this world that eat sunlight, literally are sustained by it, and they grow green. So now that you see it and you hear from NASA that the sun is exuding green light, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense with the world that I know. But when someone said it in a Kabbalistic text 2,000 years ago, the only logical explanation is they were connected to something true. They connected to something beyond, because there is no way that their brain and their capacity came up with this thing. So, bringing us back, bringing myself back, we have the Tzimtzum, we have the Big Bang. This is how everything starts to manifest. Now, spiritually, what does Kabbalah say happened before the Big Bang? What led to this great explosion of space? So we spoke about the light, and the light wanted to share. So the light created, when the light removed itself originally, the light created the first vessel, the original vessel. And the original vessel was huge, the size of worlds. We can't even encompass how big this is. And the vessel became filled with the light. The light poured in, poured in, poured in. And there was so much light in the vessel that at the end, the vessel became more like the light than like the vessel. What do I mean? Even without thinking of a vessel that is cosmos as big, you can imagine a punch bowl. A punch bowl that's this big, right? A huge salad bowl made of glass. And I'm filling it up with water, and I fill it up with liquid. And if at this point, when it's filled with water all the way to the top, I put it on a scale and I try to weigh, what do I have more, water or actual glass of the vessel? I will see that I now have more water than vessel, because the vessel has become filled with what you filled it in, and now it has more of the essence, more of the nature of that thing. So now the vessel has become like the light, and now the vessel desires to share. But the vessel doesn't have anything to share. What the vessel is the receiver of the sharing. It's a share and receiver relationship. So as the vessel is receiving, the vessel eventually goes, stop! The vessel cannot receive anymore, and then the vessel explodes. No, we're going back, Big Bang, da-da-da. Okay. And the vessel explodes into all the vessels that will ever be created. According to Kabbalah, this is the moment at which all the souls, and we'll talk about it in a moment why a soul is a vessel, but in which all the souls that ever will exist or ever existed were created in one moment. And we're not just talking about human souls. We're talking about animal souls. We're talking about spirits. We're talking about perhaps alien souls that are lived in other times of history, or maybe are living on other planets right now. I don't know. I personally believe in them, but you don't have to. So now we have the original structure of energy. As above, so below. We're always going to come back to that. When we understand what transference of energy led to the beginning of the creation, we understand where we see that transference of energy everywhere in our life, where we see it with the people we love, with the random people around us, where we see it within ourselves. It's always a relationship of giver and receiver. In every moment, there's a giver and receiver, energetically, but also physically. I'll give you one of the most basic examples. You're walking on the ground. When I take a step and I put my foot down on the ground, I am the giver. I'm giving energy. I have the energy that I came into the step with. I'm giving it to the ground. The ground is the receiver of my energy. Then when I come to lift up my leg to take the next step, now the ground is giving me the support I need to push up against to take my next step. The ground has become the giver. I have become the receiver. It is the tiniest transference of energy, but it holds that structure. And of course, when, when we're in a relationship. Hopefully, there's a constant change between sometimes I'm the giver and they're the receiver, and other times it flips, they're the giver and I'm the receiver. And this circulation of energy, this balance, is what keeps a happy relationship, whether it's with our loved ones, whether it's with our family, or with a partner. Now, the word Kabbalah in Hebrew means receiving. The whole study of Kabbalah is a study about the receiving of light, the light of the infinite that we receive into ourselves. But the more we work with the receiving of light, the more we have to work with the giving of light, the more we work with the circulation of giver and receiver. So you will hear these words come up further down constantly, and these are the basic terms to know when working around Kabbalah. Now, I would like to also introduce my psychedelic side. This is our first episode. I'm going to share more information then, later when we're interviewing and when we're growing and expanding our horizons together in great and wonderful conversations. So I started medicating with LSD when I was 17 years old. I was very lucky that from the first times that I was introduced to LSD, I was around people who had a lot of experience, some people who also worked in the caretaking fields and were working with some of these substances. I'm, by the way, 43. So we're talking about something that's been going on for, 26 years. I said 25 earlier, something that's been going on for 26 years and has been a very, very big part of my life. Now, of course, when I was 18, 19 years old, it started as a party thing, but it connected to me much more than many other party things that were around me at the time. But with time passing, I noticed that I was healing. I was thinking about things while I was in altered space. And then when I came back to my regular sense of being, things shifted. My outlook shifted. If I worked on things, if I discussed things with my friends who were close to me, while I was opened and altered using LSD medicine, then when I came back to myself, I now had different points of view. I would gain space. Space was really the magical thing that I worked on back in those days. In my late teen years and in my early 20s, I had a much more reactive nature. And what working with LSD gave me, it gave me moment between something comes in and between when I react. Okay, someone just said something that upset me, and I have a moment to think. I have a moment to see myself externally. I have a moment to process before I go out and react, hopefully in a nice, calm way, of course, never in any exaggerated or dramatic ways, heavens forbid, sometimes. And so, as I introduce you to my process, I also want to share why, for me personally, LSD is the best medicine. But this kind of thing is really individual. There are a lot of amazing medicines out there. I've had life-changing experiences with ayahuasca. I've had some very humbling and important, crucial growth experiences with mushrooms. And I've been lucky to experiment with some other medicines as well. But I will say that these other medicines, these intelligences that have been on Earth for a very long amount of time, they tend to have, their own opinions. I wouldn't say if it's necessarily their own agenda, but they each have their own way in which they guide you, okay? Just like ayahuasca is called the grandmother, and San Pedro is the grandfather. And we all know that advice received from your grandmother can come very differently than advice received from your grandfather. They both want what's best for you. But they each have their character and the way that they communicate. And I don't know if you've had these experiences on mushrooms, but it often happens to me on mushrooms that I'm processing something and I'm thinking, and then I start to think of something and the mushroom says, no, don't go there. That's not safe for you. And I understand that Mother Mushroom wants to protect me. And I definitely am convinced that we owe most of our spiritual and intellectual development as a species to what Terence McKenna calls the stoned ape theory, to mushrooms that have been accompanying us on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. The oldest fossil that they've found so far of a mushroom is 6 billion years old, okay? And this fossil, if you look at pictures of it online, it's actually like it's a half a stone and it has the full shape of the mushroom with like those little lines on the under part of the mushroom. Like the mushroom actually looks like the mushrooms you buy at the supermarket nowadays. It's not like some jumble of fungi that eventually evolved into being a mushroom. So this is the very, very, very ancient intelligence. And this intelligence knows exactly who she is for many, many, many years. She's a wonderful intelligence, and we wouldn't be here without her. But I personally love the freedom of Acid because, Acid doesn't have an opinion. He's not here to guide you. He's not here to educate you. He's not here to bring up all your darkest things from the past and help you work with them, like peyote, for example. Acid basically opens the door to altered space and says, now you can see everything you see and you can pretty much hear the thoughts of everyone around you and you can feel everything you feel all at once with no filter. Ba-bam! Bye. Hope you have a good time. And that's why I love it. So I would like to share with you and to start this experience of how I bring my personal LSD experiences to complement the knowledge. And I would like to share an experience that I had this past summer in Ibiza, which really showed me the as above, so below of the structure, but it really helped me understand and gain even deeper knowledge in my body. And so I was in a perfect set and settings. And set and settings are really so, so important, especially, if you're experimenting, especially if you're early on in your path of experimenting, the people around you, people that you trust, the location where you won't be interrupted, where you'll be free to really go deep, but still have everything you need, as far as food and shelter. Set and settings is crucial. And I was in really a perfect set and settings. I had actually intended to medicate lightly, but as some of you may know, in Ibiza, everything is more open and everything is stronger. I don't know if we're closer over there to beyond the veil. There is a big energy vortex above Ibiza in certain parts. And so, I don't know, you just feel it more when you're there. And I was in Ibiza and I had opened myself up and I started to connect to divinity. And I started to connect to divinity as I was connecting. I was going deeper and deeper, and I was really feeling divinity, and I felt like I was becoming one of it. And then when I was feeling within divinity, I was feeling divinity, feeling the connection to itself. I was feeling divinity sort of seeking wholeness, feeling the wholeness within itself so much that it had to lead to this 3D. It had to lead to creation. Now, let me explain what I mean. We said, right, that the infinite is everything. But for the infinite to feel itself as this one thing or that one thing, the infinite must manifest or chooses to manifest through many finite things, finite structures such as ourselves, such as our human bodies. For the infinite to experience 300,000 different kinds of joy, 300,000 different people experience a different kind of joy. And infinite has everything. So it also experiences sadness, and it experiences loss, and it experiences anger, and it experiences growth, and it experiences family, and it experiences love. And in some ways, I've been having this growing feeling in the last few years that, in one of the ways that we are serving the infinite is by manifesting it in the 3D realm, manifesting them in the 3D realm. Because for the infinite to experience itself, we are experiencing the infinite. And the more we can ponder the infinite, the deeper we can go in thinking about the infinite and being grateful to this amazing world around us and this love that's all around us, the more the infinite can experience itself, the more the infinite can actually have that feeling, which is experience and knowledge of itself. And in some ways, we're taught in Kabbalah that we're always seeking oneness with the light, that everything we desire are different manifestations of light because we don't see them as light. We see them as this achievement or that paycheck or this amazing new thing that I want to buy. But these are all things that are giving us light. And what we're always seeking is we're seeking a oneness with the light. But then when I was having this experience in Ibiza, I felt the oneness, the light feeling, sorry. But then when I was having this experience in Ibiza, I felt the light seeking oneness with itself. The light was going towards a place of peace. Now, in Hebrew, the word shalom means peace, which you may have heard before, people say. And the word shalem means whole. So the word shalom actually comes from the word shalem. That's the root of the word. Because when we are at wholeness, when we feel that something is complete, we feel peaceful. And the light is, I think, an opposite to, they say that the universe in the physical realm, right? The universe is always going towards chaos, going towards entropy. And maybe it's because it is the reaction to the light, maybe because the 3D realm is the necessary reaction to the light, but the light itself, I felt very strongly in my body, is seeking peace. It's going towards a more perfect and more peaceful and complete version of itself. And all of a sudden, I understood. As above, so below. We talk about us wanting this, but even the structure of ourselves, of always wanting peace, of always seeking this completeness, even that is already an imitation of the light itself. It really brought me into my body, and it brought me into seeing the sharer and the receiver within me. It's in my head. It's happening all the time. It's a game between my ego, and my sense of being, right? Like my me is when I get to be in the experience, and my ego, okay, I'll give it a slightly ridiculous example. I'm dancing with all my friends. I'm having so much fun. I'm in the me, I'm in the moment. I'm really feeling it. And then I see myself from the side. Oh my God, look at your hands. You look like a crazy person. Bring them down. Okay, I judge myself. I was external, and I'm having fun, and I'm having fun, and I'm losing myself. Da 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 da. And again, I have a thought. Oh, I don't care how I look. Whatever. I'm just having fun. Just be in the moment. Yay! Now I'm letting myself be more in the moment. But I'm having this receiver and sharer experience within my head. I'm jumping. It happens to us all the time when we're in the moment and we remember something we have to do tomorrow, or we're in the moment and we remember something that we're offended by because someone else said something yesterday. It's an internal and external movement, but they're both internal within our heads. And all of a sudden, I understood that this is the internal movement of the light. I felt it. It wasn't the way it was taught to me, but the things that were taught to me, brought together with the altered space, created this definite sensation in me that this is the movement of the light. And you know what that did for me? It really let me relax. Because sometimes I get very judgmental with myself. Like, oh, I get judgmental with myself for getting judgmental with myself. This is like my number one thing that I judge myself nowadays. When you start doing spiritual practice, it's like when you start to drive, right? In the beginning, you're starting to drive and you think of so many things all the time. And you remember to look in the mirrors, and you remember to do this, and you remember to look at the road, and you remember to look forward. And then at some point, you get so good at driving that driving is the time at which you think of other things you need to figure out. But you're not thinking of driving. Driving itself has become a second nature to you. And in the same way is the spiritual work. At the beginning, you want to pay attention to all these things, da, 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 da. And then with time, it becomes a habit to pay attention to these things. But as I'm paying attention and I'm noticing these things, then I also notice my internal conversation. And every time I judge myself, I get judgy with myself for judging myself. Or I get judgy with myself for coming out of the moment, for thinking of this other thing, and for not letting myself be able to maintain the mindfulness, maintain this balance that I'm seeking. And all of a sudden, I felt that this is the natural movement of the light. The light itself, in all its oneness, in the fact that there is no actual change in the light. The light is always the giver, it is an internal giver, and yet there's an element to it, and perhaps the right way to say it, in the perspective of the vessel, of us as a vessel, seeing the light, then there is a change. There is a transference of energy, a giver and receiver. And this is very relaxing to me. If even these deeds that I do, even this inner judgment, this inner monologue that I have is in itself imitating the structure of energy of the light, then now I can be more forgiving with myself. I can be more thoughtful. Okay, so there were a few big topics there, and there were a lot of small phrases, a lot of small terms that came in, which will come again in the future. I think on our next session, we still have a lot of grounds to cover on basic words and terminology that we are going to be using. But until then, be forgiving of yourself, be soft with yourself. Remember, we are mirroring nature around us. We are mirroring interactions of energy around us. We are a lot more sensitive to the environment that we let ourselves feel. We often think that it is us that, why did I get so sensitive? Why did I this? Why did I that? You're part of the flow. I trust you, and I'll see you next time.